Hello viewers and welcome to another discussion on Budget 2023, the largest budget ever for Guyana at $781.9 billion. We are here today with Minister of Housing and Water, the Honorable Collin Croal. Hello Mr. Croal, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, and it's a pleasure being here.
First of all, let's have your initial reaction to the general budget.
Oh, certainly. The budget, well, to summarize in one word and one sentence would not suffice, but certainly it is a budget that you will expect for any responsible PPPC government, as we've been doing. And it's a budget for people. It's a budget that touches to the core of every citizen of this country. That is, it's not just looking from the macro perspective, not just looking from the transformation perspective, but also but the tangible way things that of how you're affected in the communities. So it's a people-centered budget, certainly, and it is there is for incentive for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Looking at your specific sector, the housing sector, let's start with the housing sector. 54 point something billion dollars allocated to that. Just tell us what are some of the plans for that allocation?
Well, certainly, I am pleased about the budget. It's actually almost double our budgetary allocation for last year, or total budgetary allocation for last year. In fact, initially last year we got an initial budget submission and then supplementary, but even that it's almost double this year. And so what are some of the activities that are ongoing? Well, first of all, it is to continue our program that we have. And you have to look at the macro perspective, the bigger picture in terms of the housing sector, the plans for the people of Guyana. And that is to ensure that we encourage home ownership, to ensure that we are able to put in place the infrastructure so that persons can access their land. And so we have a macro perspective of within the 5 years to achieve 50,000 house lots, minimum. That works out to about 10,000 annually. But where are we now? We are about 20,500 plus. And that has been done just over 2 years. So as we are approaching close to a midpoint perspective, you can see that we are on target. Mm-hmm. So the huge of that amount of that allocation is going towards ensuring that we can put the infrastructure in place for development of many new areas, for which we have already, in most cases, have completed the allocation exercise. And so it forms, or we are able to have the resources that are required to develop that area that we have allocated. So that's one aspect. And we can go into detail in the areas, for example. Then we have the 4 lanes. So for currently, the one that most persons have been following, that is for the Eccles to Great Diamond. The overall budget on that is $13.3 billion. And that is ongoing. And so resources are there for us to complete that project this year. And so we're pushing ahead. We know the first lot was open from the Eccles end, but on the other end, they're moving quickly. And that is to bring ease to the traffic flow on the eastbound corridor. And I don't even need to go into detail how much beneficial would it be this highway, because sometimes we don't measure the time we spend in the vehicle, waiting in the traffic backup, the time that is lost. We can be doing much more. For example, you can be doing much more at work rather than having to lessen that amount of time. Businesses, it's costly, and frustration, etc. So that is being addressed, and so we expect it to complete that project by the end of this year. Then we have the other 4 lane that has started. That is for the Schooner to Crane 4 lane, and that is to address the west coast of Demerara traffic, or West Bank in some cases, depending on how you look at it. And if you're traveling over there, the bottleneck, from the time you cross the bridge, the Demerara Bridge, and you turn right, the length of time you take from there to pass Vrede and Hope Junction, maybe just before Crane itself, there's a huge bottleneck of the traffic, for the traffic flow over there, both coming and going. And so there is money available again for us to continue that project. It started last year, but it's ongoing, and so certainly sometime in the new year we expect to, they're not meaning 2024, to complete that very early in 2024. So those are in terms of the 4-lane projects. Then in addition to that, we also have in some of our areas, that is to regularize some of our areas. So you, for example, you've seen areas such as like Charity, etc. And I can go into those areas too. But regularization, relocation, and developing of those areas has also been part of our program and target. So it's not just about allocations, but it, as I mentioned, it's about developing communities. It's about ensuring that the future of our dear children is secured in the sense of they have a comfortable environment that they can live and they can grow up, and you don't have to have the hassle of the rental arrangement and living in under someone else's roof, etc. And so they have their own space, and so it's about that. And so some of those areas, we are old areas that we've looked at and evaluated, and so the assessment has been done that it doesn't require for them to relocate. We can regularize those. And these are old areas; these are not new areas. I must caution, and because we're moving to a zero-sum policy in terms of squatting. And so, for example, all those squatting you see on the river dam, the sea defense, etc., those are what we call zero-sum zones. And so that in no way will be permit regularization of such persons. So they will have to move. But it's also of us policing the more of the areas to prevent this type of squatting, and there will be no new squatting will be allowed, certainly. We've committed to working with many of the old areas, so those have been regularized. It is a process. We have to do the survey. It's costly, so you have to do the surveying exercise and take the occupational survey for the area, and it goes through a process so they could issue their ownership document. So there is money in the infrastructure side for those areas that we're regularizing. In addition to that, we also are catering for the utilities. When we do infrastructure for new areas, it's the complete package. So these areas, they are all virgin land. These are land farmer, sugarcane land, rice field, you name it. And so in many cases, we have to develop them from scratch, the infrastructure. When we start, zero. And so those areas are costly. We have to put the road network, we have to put the alignment for the roads, then the drainage, because you must do the drainage, the culverts, because you require culverts in most cases. In addition to that, for the road networking and the drainage, we have to put the utility services. So we put that in our schemes too. We cater for that, so the water and the electricity. And so expansion for many of these areas that we're developing to put the utility services in there are part of our budgetary allocations as part of 2023. In addition to that, we are also going to be commencing our main office. So the ministry has outgrown itself. As it is right now, we are using 4 locations. We're using 2 buildings, and of course the substantive ministries and breakdown. So we're using 2 buildings and renting 2 other locations, floors. And so the commencement of the construction of our main office, that the land preparation is complete, but we'll start the building. And it is intended sometime in 2024 to be able to have the Ministry of Housing be placed under one roof.
Where is that?
And that will be somewhere in the vicinity of Houston. Okay. Still falling within the Georgetown jurisdiction. Okay. So that is part. Then we have the program for urban accessibility program, adequate housing and urban accessibility program, and that is, many persons have been asking about core houses, the subsidies, etc. That's a program that is being implemented. It's on its final year, meaning this year, and then it'll close out sometime in 2024. It's catering for the construction about another 100 core houses, and as well for the subsidies. And these are for vulnerable persons, and they have to go through a criteria. And in all of that, we have the boundaries. We were able to get the boundaries extended. Initially, well, the project is tied to when the funding was acquired, it was tied to the Sheriff Street Mandela project. And so we've been able to get the project to be extended to Grove on the East Bank. It falls up to Parfait on the west coast of Demerara. and then on the east coast somewhere in the vicinity of Vigilance and Hope, etc. And so it targets a particular vulnerable persons, and so we still have some more available of subsidies that will be paid out under the urban program, as I said. And then in addition to that, some of our main other activities will include we have to continue our program in terms of the acquisition of land, because this is something that has to be continued. Every time we allocate, then we're utilizing so many space, right? And so we have to the program to continue acquiring land. It is an ongoing program. I also want to make mention of the single window. This is another aspect of our work program for this year. We've just laid the bill, so at some point, I guess just after the budget, we'll debate, and that is for the electronic single window processing unit. And this is for construction permit, and this is intended to ensure that we have accountability, transparency, and certainly time bound in terms of how we are able to deliver on our approvals. It's going to all be electronic, and for the initial phase we're doing a hybrid. So if you're somewhere else that doesn't have internet, you can still file and bring the manual documents to file. But the electronic platform, we've just signed a contract about $202 million, and we're implementing that over the next 6 months. So that's then the first phase. So when you apply, the beauty with that is that you will be provided with a unique number that allows you to log in, and you can monitor your application.
Okay.
So you'll know as whose desk maybe the application permit is at, and enshrining that the bill is time bound. So there are many agencies that are involved when you're seeking construction permit. We have, for example, the first level, the local authorities. So there again, they always have complaints about how long a plan takes to be approved at the NDC or the municipality. So we have to get their concurrence when there is an application. In this is that Central Housing and Planning Authority. There will be a division, and that will be the one-stop agency for your construction permit. Okay. So you come there, you apply there, or you apply through that platform, and your approval ends there too. You have, for example, we have to engage the fire board, we have to engage the health authority, environmental protection agency. These are all agencies dependent on the type of permit that is being required in terms of construction, what you want to do with your facility. And but what I'm particularly pleased with is that sometimes persons complain that they're waiting for months for their approval at CHP. So certainly this will now be eliminated, and you'll be able to know where your approval is, and in a time bound way be able to predict by when you will get a response, and be able to also predict whether by and large you will be approved or not, because the parameters will be clearly set out. In essence, we're removing the subjectivity.
Okay.
That is the bottom line. It is to remove the subjectivity. And so those are the broad. It was very difficult to in so few words to just describe what we are doing on housing itself. But those are the broad program that we have in trying for us to complete on the 2023. So work continues. Yes, you'll see other things happening because, for example, there are other activities that happen behind the scene that you don't necessarily hear about until somebody says there's an issue. For example, processing of titles and certificate of titles and transport. So from the certificate of titles, you will find that we're pushing this too, because this is to signal the completion of your ownership. You have this document, and this is it. Nobody can come tell you anything. And so we're working assiduously to clear some backlogs that we may have had in the past, and sort of to the issues of ownership of many of these lands. And as I said, these are ongoing, and these are some of the activities that happen that you don't really hear much about. We are also looking to strengthen our enforcement arm. Certainly monitoring of the public spaces have become a little more sophisticated too. So cat and mouse games sometimes takes place. But we're also calling on on the citizens as well as the local authorities too, to help. And some of the areas are that within the confines of the ministry, like for example, sea defense and so forth, to be able to help monitor their space, so that some of these issues that pop up, they're dealt with quickly and or can be nipped in the bud. Sometimes I think it take too long to get the feedback, and then it becomes out of hand. And then, it becomes much more difficult to be able to address that. But this year, you will also find us working aggressively to deal with, as I said, a number of unregulated areas, irregular settlements, etc. So we have a collaborative program for many regards. So, for example, the president was a few days on the Suzdijk Highway, and that has been addressed because many of those areas on the Suzdijk Highway, they are not formal settlements. They're pockets of persons who went and they occupy spaces. So we will look to regularize there. And you have on this riverbank on the east bank, maybe from the vicinity of Herstelling going all the way up to probably Grove. We have done our infrastructure evaluation of what is taking place there. The occupation survey, they have over 241 structures on that stretch alone. Those are portions to be addressed. You have on the East Coast, for example, areas such as Success, where we have squatting. So all of those areas will be addressed. So I know we have been saying it repeatedly. You have two types of relocation or regularization process that happens. You have one where relocation is required because there's a reserve and it was always intended for future expansion and growth. So that's one aspect. So for example, a recent incident on the East Bank, so Caneview, that was a reserve and it was always intended for expansion. Then you also have, for those parts, we have to literally move because they just can't stay where they have taken up that space. So our citizens have to be much more responsible in how they're operating and what they do. The final aspect I want to mention on housing, in a broad sense, and then you can go into some of the finer details, is the hinterland program. Well, there are two other things. I said final, maybe there are two others. The hinterland housing, certainly we've taken up with that. We have, for example, the ongoing program at Letem, for where the government of Guyana has contributed $1 million and the beneficiaries put to $2 million. So those are going through the banks and construction. That will commence. That has actually just commenced for the first set of houses in Letem. Similarly, we have our housing program will continue. For example, we've completed over 800 houses. We have about at least another 700 in the system ongoing. And that will tell you the magnitude of the housing program that is taking place at all levels, whether it's low income, moderate, young professionals, etc. So the housing program will continue. We are working with other partners to increase home construction. So while we are satisfying the allocation aspect, home construction, by the way, was not necessarily a commitment we have made in our manifesto. Manifesto speaks to house lots. It speaks to allocations. But the construction of houses is something that is being pushed by our president, who wants to see that everybody is comfortable and to assist in some way for us to have persons to be able to own their own home. So right across the country, for example, in Region 3, we have houses that are under construction. Well, we know Region 4. Region 5, we'll have something similar. Region 6, ongoing at Williamsburg, Hampshire, the Ordnance, Fortlands. Region 7, we're going to be clearing the land now because this is one of the new areas that was tendered for construction of houses in Bartical. Similarly, well, Region 9 I just mentioned, and then Region 10. Certainly we have, the President has mentioned about the 1,000 home program for Region 10, and so land clearance is happening at a new location, and so that we can push those houses to be constructed. A lot of persons are applying for their houses. We have in the system a lot of persons who are pre-qualified with the banks. So you have more applicants that have pre-qualified with the banks than we can supply.
Okay.
So there's no shortage of persons who can qualify for their houses. We know this. And of course, the highest bracket of persons will be more of the low income. And we are working to see if we can get more contractors on board. And similarly, we are working with additional funding, which you will hear more in the upcoming months, of additional funding to fast-track infrastructure work for our housing program. So this year, we want to see more houses being constructed. Okay. Our president has mandated us at least 22,000, so that's a tall order, but we're working to ensure that we can deliver on this. I can't close on the housing part without reminding you too that one of the accomplishment that we've made, it was earlier this year, 2022, was for the Condominium Act. Okay. And so this, there are a lot of new buildings you see that are upcoming in many areas, and they're of condominium townhouses type. Mm-hmm. We have now gazetted the regulation, and so the process is clear for us to begin the approvals for condominium type of buildings, townhouses, duplexes, whatever you want, whichever one you want to put in the category once it's shared space. So you can now issue ownership for a single space on a particular land that is being shared land, but you're utilizing a particular space, you get your title for that area. Okay. And so we were able to achieve that, and certainly there's a lot that's happening at housing itself. Mm-hmm. In terms of, that's housing, so I don't know if we want us to go more in detail on the housing, or you want us to touch on? I just
have one question on the housing, because we might run out of time. With the demand for house lots and everything, and there's an increase in squatting that you're trying to prevent, would new areas be opened up in urban areas for persons to acquire house lots?
The process of opening new areas is ongoing. Certainly, it's ongoing, and every region we do an assessment, by the way, to look at our demand and where our weighted demand is. If you assess then Region 4 being the populated region as it is, you will find that will have the heaviest pending applicants. Region 3, for example, where we were with the president yesterday. Region 3, when we started out, we had about, a year ago, it was about 14,000 pending applicants in Region 3. We have since allocated about 4,000 plus. So we're down to about 10,000 pending applicants. And these are not necessarily people just applied yesterday, right? I'm talking about that are in the system. And we are looking at new areas to open up for Region 3 too, because we have on the West Coast, we have addressed on the West Coast, and we have more lands that we develop on the West Coast, but we are also looking, for example, at Wales on the West Bank. So availability of land plays an important role too, of how we can respond. When you look at Region 4, the reality is Region 4 at some point in time will become saturated, because you have competing interests for Region 4 too. It's not just about land for home ownership, but also for commercial interests, for industrial interests. And so we have to cater, we have to have that balance. And to these bank corridor, more and more we have been doing a lot of the commercial industrial activities, and no doubt you understand, because of the closeness for ports and that corridor for the Demerara River. We concentrated in 2022 for a number of areas on the east coast of Demerara for land, because we were able to get additional land from Gaisuku. Since Gaisuku took the position of, for example, of closing down the estate on the East Coast so they can consolidate in Berbice. So that allowed us to have more land available. Okay. This year, East Coast of Demerara can expect more allocations.
Great.
Right? And so it's a work in progress. Region 6, for example, the previous period, we've worked on the 75, 76 area. Ordnance, Fortland, some we're doing the houses, and then you have the Williamsburg, Hampshire. We are looking for more land from close to New Amsterdam, probably like Glasgow, etc. Similarly, we are looking for additional land. We're developing another area. We'll be developing a Molson Creek community, community Molson Creek. You go there now, you'll see, oh, why Molson Creek? I don't see people living there. That's past Crabwood Creek, and but that zone will become a hub too, because with the future of the connecting of the bridge with Suriname too, you can understand the concentration. So
Definitely.
our planning department, this is an ongoing exercise. They also have to look at plan, take into consideration government's future plan. And that's what we don't, so many times when we respond, it's not just we wake up one morning and say, hey, let's allocate here today. It's a progressive plan. I'll give you another example. For Region 5, for example, we have done areas such as Baltiak, Shieldstown, that's more closer to Rosick now. We did just recently Burma. That's all the way in the river, going in from at Burma. That has, very close to the Michael Creek people and Mycone and so forth. But we are also looking for land midway so that we can, have that strike that balance or cater for persons there. But again, if we can't acquire, then one can only offer where available. We also have to move away from this culture of saying that I want to be able to be allocated a land very close to some family member I know or some friend I know, or some brother or some sister. You can't have it both ways. We have to develop our country. We're developing all over. And so there has to have shift, and this is part of planning too.
Well, that's the beauty of Guyana, because everywhere is experiencing development, so you can go to any part of the country, own a house lot, and develop yourself as an individual.
I'm similarly talking about other parts, because I'm similarly looking forward in another 2 years to see how Lethem will look, because we've done a lot of
very excited
allocation at that new location, and many persons from Region 9, they're happy about that, because these are persons who from some of the villages, but they want to embark on work opportunity or business opportunities within the Lethem cluster, and they've said to me, accommodation is posed a problem. Now they have an opportunity of owning their own home or their own location, and it allows them to grow. And that is part of the development of our country and region too.
Definitely. Minister, moving on to water,
Sure.
some $17 billion have been allocated to this. How would this be used?
Oh, sorry. Well, there again, this is another exciting aspect of our ministry. More resources being pumped into the water sector. This is the largest budgetary allocation we've gotten. But again, it's all part of fulfilling our plan. When we got into office, the very first thing that we did was to assess how we're performing in the water sector right across the country. And we've also looked at our system, what is required. We've looked at growth, because growth is, you have new areas that are being developed. And every aspect was looked at. And with that, we came up with a 2021 to 2025 plan. And that became, I call it our water Bible per se. Why do I say so? So, for example, when we started out, the entire hinterland maybe was about, this when I say started, I'm talking about 2020 August, right?
Yeah.
The entire hinterland coverage was about maybe just 45%. And I'm talking about regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. With the investment in the hinterland, we have moved that all the way up to about 75%. I'm talking about combined. Some regions will be more than the others. We have in here $1.4 billion for hinterland this year. That is more resources being made available for us to do much more for the hinterland.
Any specific areas?
All across the hinterland. I could go, I have the list, we can go into them. But let me say this. Let me say this. In the hinterland, I just said to you we were about 75%. We want to achieve 100% access for the hinterland, meaning all hinterland communities must be able to access water, potable water, by 2025. So we use the program that you see this year, and what you will see next year will be pushing us even before 2025 to complete that target. That means a lot. You go to some communities, and I'll give you one example. For Jawala, we did a system there for Jawala on the 2022 program. But Jawala, how it is, some of the population live on the left bank, and others that live on the right bank, right? And of the river. And so what happens there? We have to do one system. We couldn't supply the left bank. This year we are catering for another well there to satisfy the left bank, and that's a reality. And so some villages, yes, have water, access to water, but not the entire village. We know this. And so, in addition of drilling new wells, it is also about expanding the distribution network. That is key. Because you may have a system, but it's also to expand. And the hinterland, pose a challenge, right? Because geography of where some persons live. So, if you're 2 miles, 3 miles away from the system, then it's not practical to be able to running a pipe there. But we have a consolidated effort to push our hinterland program. By this year, we want to have 100% because Region 9 itself, in terms of coverage, is more advanced than the other 3 regions. We want to complete 100% access in Region 9 for this year.
Okay.
And so more resources are there. Similarly, Region 1, we procured a new rig. Tomorrow I'm commissioning in Moruca sub-region one completion of one of the system that we started in December. But there's a pot rig there that is drilling a number of wells in Moruca, so that will see more wells, at least 7 wells in the Moruca sub-region this year. Similarly and this moves on for Region 8, 7, and so forth. Mabruma sub-region, the rig that was in the Matakai sub-region has just arrived in Mabruma, and that will be drilling a number of wells to expand the distribution network. So the hinterland can look forward to a lot. That's one aspect. Then we move to the coastland. The coastland, by and large, has 97% coverage. So coverage or access to water in the coastland is not really a major challenge. Yes, you have 1 or 2 areas that or probably a stretch that is out. Our major challenge on the coastland is the complaint about the quality of the water, which brings us in question the water treatment plants. So we want to ensure that we are fast-tracking a number of treatment plants to address the complaint about your water, saying it's higher iron content or whatever else you want to say about it. On the coastland, it's only about 52% treated water. 52% when you check regions 2 to 7, 6 and 7 for Bartica Central are only covered by treated water for 52% of that population. So think about that. So that's why you get a lot of complaint about water. And so we have signed contracts. There's 7 contracts that have been signed for new treatment plants. And those 7 contracts, the implementation will continue this year. By latest June next year, we can see those plants fully implemented to address a number of cluster areas. In addition to that, there are 12 systems for which we are upgrading. So that means you have existing system, because there are some treatment that I said that is being done, but it's to expand that, putting new inline filters, to expand the reach for those current treatment plants. And together, the fusion with that, with new treatment plants, expanding our current program, a number of new inline filters, etc., will see us achieving by 2025 90% minimum, I should say minimum, 90% treated water on the coastline. It's a lot of resources that has to be invested for these plants. It is expensive, and maybe that is one of the reasons why we could not have probably do it to the magnitude as prior or from the past. And so when persons ask, what is there in the budget for me? These are the things that we don't take time to assess. It is not just about an increase of salary. It is not just about an increase for the pensioners. It is not just about the increase for the grant for children. But there are other measures, or there are other contributions, or there are other investments that are happening that is aiding in your quality of life. And if it helps in your quality of life, it also means that it is helping in making the resources that are available for you to do other things, your disposable income, much more available. So you don't have to spend on the health care, because we're investing in the health care. You're investing in the best hospital, so you don't have to find a private doctor. These are the things that are happening for us, isn't that? I don't think we spend enough time to talk about. There's this tendency to look at how much is the increase that I get, percentage. But there are other things. The roads that we're building, the highways that we're building, is all to help one, you bring down the cost of transportation. Two, it helps you to get home very quickly. And so there's some huge amount of advantage. In addition to that, we also have a number of systems that we're changing out here. You have a number of the old systems or if you go along Church Street, you see pipe work that is being done. Those are centuries old pipe, huge pipe. And they can't really increase the pressure on those because they will leak. So sometimes you go by Bank of Ghana or you go by the Cenotaph, you always see a leakage there. You go by in front of Humaniana, you'll see leakages there. That is to address. We have to change out all those pipes so the next phase will continue. As part of our program for water too, will see us for addressing or reducing our non-revenue water, dealing with a number of leakages, putting in more water meters, so that we can capture our usage. So we have an aggressive water metering program this year. We put in place about 20,000 last year, and we want to increase that this year. I know a Signal, there's so much thing we can talk about housing and water, and I see Signal for time. But these are some of the things that are happening, and so we're happy about GWI. GWI is performing better financially. We've been able to turn around the performance of the company. We've been able to respond to address leakages, issues in a much more timely manner, and we've been addressing to our customers' concern, care, and attention. And these are the things that we don't spend enough time talking about. We look at the hardcore infrastructure, but in a measured way, these are all part of our improvement. So, as you signal to me that I have to wrap up, let me say that Budget 2023. For us at the Ministry of Housing and Water, we're very pleased with our budgetary resources. Of course, we want to do more, and so we're happy for that. We want to bring betterment for our people. We want to put more smile on the faces of those parents. We even sometimes when they bring the children with them, that these exercises, these dream realize exercises, they're saying to the child, we can go now build our own house. The child is all excited. Oh, yes, I have my space. I can ride my bike, that sort of thing. And so this is what it does. It's to uplift our citizens, to make them much more comfortable, have a pleasant environment that you want them to grow up in. And likewise, so this is a message I also want to leave for those persons who are living in areas that will not be able to address in a formal way. Do the right thing. You will be addressed. Once you're in the system, eventually you will be addressed. This PVPC government is ensuring that home ownership comes as quickly as possible to its citizens.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Croal, for being here with us. From all that you said, we know that you have a huge task ahead. But from your performance, we know that you are up to the task.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. And viewers, thank you for watching. We had another discussion, this time with Minister of Housing and Water, Honorable Collin Croal, as we discussed Budget 2023. Thank you.